We got to talk about Bo Nix against BYU because man played a great game. He really did. And I think that through 3 weeks as an Oregon fan, as an Oregon coaching staff, you have to be feeling a lot more confident about where Bo Nix is at and where he can ultimately take you in this 2022 season. He does have 2 seasons of eligibility, but I would imagine that Bo Nix wants to come to Oregon, have a strong season, and then make his case for the NFL. I know you and I kind of talked about that when we were kind of fine tuning your story about when will Oregon see another multi-year starter at quarterback. It could be as soon as next year, but we don't know. But to get back to Bo in this game, man, doesn't even throw 20 passes and still has a heck of a game. 13 for 18 through the air, 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then he really got it done with his legs as well, scoring the opening touchdown for this one. And then rushing, he had 9 carries for 35 yards and 3 touchdowns. So 5 total touchdowns for Bo Nix and his awesome performance against BYU. That's the second straight game where he scored 5 touchdowns after just throwing it all over the field against Eastern Washington. So I think one of the biggest takeaways from this game as far as Bo Nix and kind of where he's at is Georgia was not a good indication of where he's at. Maybe it's a good indication of where he's at against a team he struggled with, historically. But now I think I'm pretty confident in saying that this Oregon offense has both a higher floor and a higher ceiling than maybe some of the previous quarterbacks that we've seen coming through Eugene, most notably Tyler Shuck and Anthony Brown. And it's just really refreshing to see a quarterback that's willing to take those deep shots. Obviously, that play to Troy Franklin was probably the highlight of the game, but I think you keep it simple. We've heard that these past 2 weeks, right? Do simple better. Like Trello is saying, not forcing anything from Bo. So he's continuing to make strides week by week. And I wrote that even like before this season, I want to say, the Oregon doesn't need their quarterback to be a superstar because the backs are amazing. We're going to talk about the backs, and then so are these wideouts and these tight ends. So, still really impressed with Bo, and he didn't turn the ball over too. That's like another massive, massive step of improvement after that opener against Georgia.
Yeah, 110%. Bo, looked not great against Georgia, and then I think in that second game, that game against Eastern Washington, everyone's like, "Oh, it's just Eastern Washington. It's an FCS school. Wait until he goes up against some of the better teams. He's going to get absolutely pummeled again." I think he showed that you give it time, and he can really settle. He can settle in and really grow with this team, grow with this system. And he looked really good. He aired it out. He went through his reads. He did the simple things right, which was that thing that which is something we've been mentioning a lot, and also that Dan Lanning mentioned in that Eastern Washington presser a week ago. And this was I think the game that he needed for confidence. He only had incompletions on 5 passes, 13 for 18, 222 for 2 touchdowns, completion percentage of 72%, and a quarterback rating of 212.5, which pretty good. So I was very what's the word? I was very excited to see how Bo really aired it out, and I think the offense kind of really was the thing that kept Oregon in this game. Defense, we can talk about that a little bit later because that definitely gave me a few gray hairs in the second half. And I think but overall, Bo Nix really put this team on his back and carried Oregon to a win and really just punched BYU in the face there.
Yeah, I think every week, Mark, we're seeing more and more of Bo Nix and why he was really highly touted coming out of high school, but the turnovers are really the biggest thing that that have kind of haunted him, or been his biggest critique, during his time as a college quarterback. But if they're able to run the ball like they have been, if these guys are able to get open and run good routes, that they don't need him to, be running sideline to sideline like they did against LSU last year, and then last second just fired that ball into the end zone. But I think that that's just they're not asking him to do too much, and I think that's really helping his confidence, and that's a big reason why he was able to load up and then throw that 50-yard bomb to Troy Franklin, and just put the ball in a spot where he can have his guy just say, hey, I think you're in one-on-one coverage, one-on-one matchup. I have confidence in you. I'm going to put the ball where it needs to be, and I'm just going to see if you can, go up and make a play. And he did. So we'll talk more about the offense overall and kind of how it's evolving. But just to get to a couple of these comments, Mikey G saying Bo knows and throws and goes and has to keep that going. Hasn't turned it over since week 1 against Georgia, which is awesome. Offense is just peaking, it feels like. Maybe not peaking, but just operating on all levels. Got to keep that momentum going. Tony says, I, for one, was hard on Bo Nix. Bo protected the ball, and that's something that you really want to see keep going every week. You just got to take care of the ball, especially against BYU. I think that was one of the biggest things. Going from Eastern Washington to a ranked BYU team, physical BYU team, they were down some guys on both sides of the ball, but the margin for error was so small compared to Eastern Washington. And if you turn the ball over, we all know how that can affect games. So really liking what I'm seeing from Bo. I'm kind of surprised they're running him this much, especially after the Georgia game, because I remember I was talking to our Georgia publisher, Brooks Austin, before that one, and he was saying that he was surprised that Kenny Dillingham didn't scheme as many runs for Bo Nix in that game, but he's kind of been running wild these past couple weeks. But I don't think he's putting himself in jeopardy. I mean, there were a couple at the goal line when he was, anytime you're extending, you're kind of putting yourself in harm's way, but Bo Nix continues to impress, and I think he's really just making strides that are going to help this Oregon offense be efficient. They're starting faster. That's another thing we can talk about later. But just kind of wrapping up, final thoughts on Bo Nix.
Yeah, but I think it was Troy Franklin during the post game kind of media availability. Somebody asked him if he liked watching Bo kind of like put himself kind of on the line to get a couple of those big conversion. He's like, yeah, I like that. And I think that, that Bo has really stepped up. I think we saw why this staff brought him in. And it's kind of like we said, it's like, I heard a lot of Oregon fans saying it's like start tie, don't play Bo after that first game. It's like, and it's just one game. And it was against probably the worst opponent you could go up against in a first game. And now Bo has really, turned it around since that last game, put on 2 stellar performances, including one against a really good, solid BYU team.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to see what's going on as far as like Tony says here. How does Bo Nix look against a Pac-12 team? How does Bo Nix look on the road? And compare that to the Georgia game, because not every game that Oregon plays on the road is going to be like that Georgia game. But they do have to travel on the road a couple times this year, starting things off in the Palouse. You have to go to Berkeley. You have to go to Tucson to play Jed Fish, his new and improved Arizona team. That some people want to call a trap game. I don't know if we have to go there just yet. But I think, great to see Bo Nix continue to make strides. And I think he's really just going to keep getting better if he can continue doing what he did, doing the simple things better. And I think that the way that Dillingham has called the last 2 games have just been super, super good and, healthy for what Bo wants to do, and just kind of keep to build that confidence.